All right. Get on over here. Everybody got me your way. Just understand there's another screen.
That's right.
Let me turn this on. All right. Let me know when I can get started. I'll get going here. Good. All right. So this we got two. There's two parshas in one. One is Tezria and Mitzora. Right. So we'll read that. I'm hoping everyone was throughout the week was studying their Hebrew, so they can follow along with me. You're welcome to try to take a stab at this. I'll walk you through it if you don't mind. All right. So we'll get started, and what I'll do is there's some things that I'm going to home in on that I think that is important that I think you guys should consider. All right. All right. So Tezria, everyone know what that means? It's up top right. Says she conceives. All right. So I'm going to start this off, and then y'all can kick it in a notch whenever y'all ready. Okay. Wadaber Yahuwah el Moshe lemor. I guess I'm going to do this myself. All right. It says, and Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, what did he say? Daber el Bnei Yisrael. Uh-oh. It's okay. But it says, Daber el Bnei Yisrael lemor, which literally means, verse 2, speak until the children of Israel, saying, what is he going to say? Isha chi Tezria. Okay, so what does that mean? If a woman has conceived seed, all right? What's next? Okay, well, Yalda, Zakar, literally right here, Zakar is the word for man here, but it's a type of man, right? So this is a what? Born of a man child. Okay, we keep going. With Tam'a, what does that mean? Look at the root of this word is tameh, which we're going to talk about today. But anyway, we'll keep going. And then it says what? Shib'at. Okay, good. Shib'at yamim. What does that mean? Okay, so she shall be unclean, what? 7 days. Great. Last part is Kime nidat. Over here. Dotat. What's the last part? Titma. All right, which literally means what? The separation for infirmity shall she be unclean. Now, you're going to see the word right here. It says nidat. That's the Hebrew word for what? For a woman, it's their nidah, right? But it's called separation. We'll see that a little bit. Okay. Right here, nidat is right here. So let me use the pen because I forgot people can't see, right? All right. No problem. Nidat. Oh, there's a screen right there. All right. Nidat. All right. Okay. Here's the other part called Mitzora, which means someone that's a leper. Okay. So we'll read that. Wadaber Yahuwah el Moshe lemor. Okay. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe saying, what did it say? Zot, which means this. Tiyeh Torah ha-Mitzora. What does that mean? It's right there on the screen, right? So Zot is this, shall be the law of the Mitzora, the leper, okay? Bayom, what's this say? First, what does it say? Taharato, right? Taharato, well, Huba el ha-Kohen, all right? So it just literally means, it says, in the day of his cleansing, he shall be brought unto the priest. So we're going to see two things today. We're going to see the cleansing part. We're going to see the leper part. And then there's some levels dealing with a leper. Okay, we're going to see that today. All right, so some definitions first. Tuma, up top, you see what it says here, religious impurity. Filthiness, uncleanness. It says it comes from. Okay, so right underneath you just see 29:30. It says what? Tameh. Tameh means to be foul, especially in ceremonial or moral sense. Contamination, defile self, pollute self, be or to make self pronounced unclean. And then, of course, we said that X meant what? It's unique to the Hebrew language, means utterly. All right, so how do you make yourself foul, contaminated, defiled, pollute self? How do you do that?
Touching and being in contact with things that are not clean.
Okay.
Like even like during the time of your wife's nida, you're supposed to stay, not have contact with her.
Right, let's go to another planet. Okay. So the opposite of that we're going to talk about is tahara, right? Tahara and tahor, right? So tahara, which is feminine form, means purification, more purity, cleanse, cleansing, purification, purifying, right? But it says it's from 2892. So we go down to 2092, which is tuhar, right? So it says, which is going to be very important. We're going to see later on what it means. Literally, brightness, purification, clearness, esteem, what can be called glory here, and purifying. This is going to be very important towards the end of this lesson. All right. And then it says this is from 2891. So, of course, I put that at the bottom there. To be bright. Okay. To be pure, physically sound, clear, unadulterated. Okay. Levitically uncontaminated, innocent, chodesh, commonly called set apart or holy, as they would say. Okay. To make self or pronounce clean. Okay. Someone that's purged. Now, I'll save it to the end. Okay. I won't spoil nobody. All right, so the uncleanness state. Okay, things that make you unclean. And we went over these being in contact with a dead body. Okay. The woman is not clean after childbirth and leprosy. So these are the things we're going to talk about today. But there's more things, but I just want to talk about these three today. So sometimes defining words can be tricky. So we can say if I roll around in the mud or in the dirt, I can be what? Unclean. But that does not make me tameh. Does not make me impure. The reverse is true as well. If I take a shower, it makes me clean, but it does not make me pure. There's a difference. Okay. So you can shower all you want, but if that inside is not right, you're still considered something, right? You can be dirty on the outside. Hey, I got myself dirty, but I'm still pure inside, if you will. Okay. So we still have to see these laws in today's time. With no physical temple established, how do we call one clean or unclean? By way of rituals. How do we do that today? Okay. So I also put last, should these things matter today? Should it matter? I mean, you don't have a temple, so should it matter? Yes? Okay. All right. We're going to see. All right. So I put on here just things, a little deeper perspective. Says things that we've already talked about, these three. But another level of being in contact with a dead body is the company that you keep. Okay. What does light have to do with darkness, right? Absolutely nothing. So if you hang around them, just like Israel did, right? They can change you. You can become separated from Yahuwah, which brings death. All right. Number two, when a woman has a child, she is in a vulnerable state. She should not be around a lot of people. Okay. She can be acceptable to a lot of things that are negative. I won't get into all the other negative of spirits and demons and people that can do things, but just my point is that there's another level to these actual uncleannesses. Number three, which we're going to talk about today, leprosy is an unusual state of mind and flesh. Example, your mouth can cause leprosy in your flesh, right? So we'll read about that. Not just your flesh, but can spread to others as well. Okay, we will see some of these in the lesson today. Right? So how are we doing so far? All right, so recap. Last week, we read how coming in contact with a dead animal, a carcass, that it would make you tameh, or make you unclean. Essentially, the animal's unclean body can make you unclean, right? And we saw the other way in reverse. Remember, on the Day of Atonement, he can take all the sins of Israel, put it on the animal. Therefore, the animal now takes on the sins, and Israel is freed from the sins, and the scapegoat is commonly called Azazel goes away, right? All right. Number 2, a woman that had a child, she becomes tameh. We're going to talk a little bit about that. The mitzora, the leper, physically or spiritually is tameh, and we'll see how that works. A man that has a seed emission is called tameh. A woman on her nidah, on her menstrual cycle, or on her what they call flowers in the King James, her separation, she is tameh. A man or a woman having a zub, they are considered tameh. Zub is a discharge. Okay, I'll give you some more definitions in just a minute. You'll see it in the Hebrew. I'm just telling you in advance. Okay, in Numbers, it talks about when a person comes in contact with a dead person, that makes that person tameh, or unclean. So not just a dead person, but everything that's in that house becomes tameh to you, right? So how are all these things connected? Let's compare these 7 things with the definition we have thus far and see if they fit. So let me just tell you up front. All of them have to do with death. All 7 has to do with death. Okay, so let me go back here just to share with you here. So when we think about this word tameh, it all has to do with death. So my question may be, how does it have to do with death on a woman with a child? How does that have to do with death? Okay, don't worry, we're going to answer that. How about a mitzora? Okay, someone that's leper. A man that has a seed emission is called tameh. How does that deal with death? So you see what I mean? So in other words, we got to go into these words and see what's going on. All right. So to the left, it says things that make you unclean.
Answer that. How about mitzora?
All right, so that's here are the 7 that we talked about. Now I'm going to go from left to right, starting with dead animal. Okay, so you become unclean in what way? I put contamination, right? So contamination makes you unclean, right? Now look at the Hebrew word for impure, tomah, right? That makes someone impure. So what? It says you become impure in what way? For a dead animal, how do you become impure? Okay, so we got the unclean, that makes you contaminated. But how about impure? No one? You take a best guess? Okay, no problem. We'll see in just a minute. A woman that has a child, she is unclean because of the blood and the fluids, right? This is a natural event, right? So we know she's unclean. But why is she impure? Why is she impure? So because Most High said so? Okay. Okay, so for an example, sometimes when we look at things unclean, people will look at that as also saying sin, right? So if, for an example, a woman that had a child, which is natural, she's unclean, but did she sin? But she has to do a sin offering. Because of the blood. So why is sin offering? She committed a sin? Okay, so we born into a world of sin? Okay, we'll see. I just thought you might have
But it really how she conceived the child.
Say again?
You got it? I said, could it be how she conceived the child?
No, no, that's not it. But we'll get into it. Birth process.
And like, come on, man.
All right, no worries. We'll keep going. All right.
Is it possibly something to do with Eve? Because women have to go through a hard process to atone for that sin. Do you think is it connected?
Okay,
maybe?
there's a slight connection there.
Oh, okay. Get warmer, people.
It'd be the most unlikely answer. You'll see if that's what it is at the end. All right.
Can I ask you something?
Ken.
Is there a connection between what Dude was talking about in one of the Psalms where he said, "In sin did my mother conceive me"?
Yeah, there's a part in that, but one may think about how she did that. So I wouldn't want to get into that part as to what she did. But, it can be looked upon that way, but I wouldn't use it in the sense of impure. Okay, or I mean, not impure, but unclean. All right, so a man that has a seed emission, okay, he's unclean due to the discharge. And I put almost a natural event. Okay, so let me just tell you why it's almost a natural event. So when I say almost, because of this, there's a time when a man can discharge that's negative. He has a STD, something could happen, right? Okay. Then there's a time where he could have laid down and had a good dream. And when he had that good dream, he woke up and he noticed that something had taken place that he needs to take a shower. Okay? All right. Good. So a woman on her nidal, or her flower menstrual cycle, or her separation, okay, we know she's unclean, okay, due to the flow of blood and fluids, right? How does she become impure naturally and spiritually? Since this is a thing she has to go through every month, right? And when does she not go through that? When she's pregnant, right? When she's pregnant. Why? Okay, all right. A man or woman have an exube, right? Exube meaning, again, a discharge. But let's say intercourse is a natural thing, or for health reasons. So health reasons, I say, for those that may have gone through these things, so I'm pretty sure they're kind of sensitive to some of these things, but like health reasons deal with, let's say, something that they've caught from somebody else or something that has happened, things like that. So I put natural event or health problems. The difference is when you have the health issue, notice that it comes with a certain smell because in the body it's foreign, but the reality of it is it's decay. Okay, so we'll talk about that towards the end as well. All right. Last one is come in contact with the dead body. We understand contamination and transference. And then, of course, we can tell the impure part because what? Demonic rituals, spiritual impurity. So that's no brainer, right? Everyone's good with this, right? All right. So I said, so Tuma is defined in all cases as a part of death. Death and understanding of a loss. So let's use some of the places we mentioned to see if this understanding is true. And then Tahara is defined as something with life. Okay, something dealing with life, and we'll see that. To summarize the chart, when a man has an emission of seed, if it does not connect with the egg, life is lost. Menstruation follows the same principle. The egg dies when not what? Connected to the seed to produce life. When both man and woman have a discharge or discharges, it can have something to do with declining health or STDs. Excuse me. Things not associated with natural causes. Animals work a little different. So we talked about the animals last week, but clean animals can be killed by wild animals, right? So if it's killed by wild animals, is that clean animal now clean for you to eat? No, right? So if an animal that is clean but has a disease or died of itself, can you eat it? Okay, so these are unclean animals to eat. Okay, wild animals, that kill other animals. Carnivorous animals are animals that deal with death on a regular basis, meaning they're unclean, period. They deal with death. That is their thing. Lions, bears, they're going through a brush of death all the time. Okay? How are you doing so far? This is just, we're going to ramp this thing up in just a minute, but I want to make sure we got our foundation first. Everyone's good so far? Clean, unclean, pure, impure. All right. Women conceiving a child. So we'll start with Leviticus 19, or WAYIKRA chapter 19, verse 2. So speak to the people of Yisrael or Israel, or Yisrael, saying, if a woman conceives seed, tezriah, okay, a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as at the time of her menstruation. She shall be unclean. What's this? Why the connection between that and menstruation? Okay, no problem. Verse 3. Huh? Right. What? Right, but it says, speak to the people of Yisrael, saying, if a woman conceives seed, right, a male child, then she shall be unclean 7 days, as at the time of her menstruation. Menstruation. Why is that?
Because sometimes with a woman, she can conceive within the time after her menstruation goes off. So most of the time it's in that period between menstruation ends and cleanness comes, because that's what happened.
Okay.
Is that
Excuse me, Moray, is it because of just the natural process, of childbirth between when a woman has a male child, when she has a female child? It's natural for that time to be allotted for a woman body to go to be back, to reset back to normalcy.
Okay.
I lost my chain of thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Verse 3. It says, and on the 8th day, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Then she shall continue for 33 days in the blood of her purifying. She shall not touch any chodesh or set apart, nor come into the sanctuary until the day of her purifying are completed. But if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean 2 weeks, as in her menstruation, and she shall continue in the blood of her purifying for 66 days. Menstruation is linked to a woman after she gives life. And I said, why, right? Okay, great. So the purity system of the Torah are chiefly involved in the temple sacrificing and priestly gifts, all which had to be guarded for what? From ritual impurities. Now, I'm asking you guys these questions in advance. I'm going to answer towards the end of the lesson. I just want to hear what you guys' answers are. And let me know what you think at the end. It might be a little controversial for some. Okay. All right. Please don't shoot the messenger. All right. So the word conceive, seed, or bear seed is the word tezriah, right? It's in its hitfil or causative form. Technically, it's in a yiktol, or imperfect third person feminine singular, if those want to look it up for themselves. But anyway, and the root of the word is zara, or seed. Okay, so when you look at the word seed, what does it mean? Zara. So, plant, bear, conceive seed, set with sower or yield, right? So that's the design of a seed. I don't care if it's man, I don't care if it's what you put out in the field, that is what it's designed to do. Okay? Same thing with the Father's word. The Father's word is considered a seed, right? And depends, and you're considered the earth, if you will. And depending on how this seed is in you determines what fruit you will produce. But we'll talk about that another time. So what is interesting is who is called unclean. The mother is, but the baby is not. Okay? So, tuma. This is when a woman perhaps supposed to be has a child. At first glance, we can see this would be the opposite of death. She is bringing forth life into the world, right? Okay, the experience of childbirth for the mother and child, for that matter, is pretty dangerous. So in the Hebraic thought, when the mother conceives, she actually loses something that was a part or attached to her. Her body obtains a loss. 9 months, she nurtures the baby, gives all the things necessary to keep the baby alive. The baby is growing inside of her. When the time has arrived, the baby is detached from its source. Can you see the loss? Okay, so Tameh is showing you, Tuma is really showing you how this deals with the loss or death. So how about someone that has leprosy? How does this apply to him if he or she has not physically died? So we're going to see how that works. All right, Tezria, right? Lepers. So I'm just using these pictures. I'm not saying that this is exactly what it is back in the days of scripture, but it really comes very, very, very close. Okay? So everyone sees how it kind of looks, right? What's happening for this leprous person here? It's losing something, right? But it's dying. The pigment is dying. I'm not saying they're dying, but within the flesh, right? It's losing something. All right, so when a man shall have in the skin of his flesh a rising or a scab or a bright spot, and it be in the skin of his flesh like the plague, a leprous, then he shall be brought unto Aharon or Aaron, the priest, or unto one of his sons, the priest. And the priest shall look on the plague in the skin of the flesh, and when the hair in the plague is turned white, and the plague in sight be deeper than the skin of the flesh, it is a plague of leprosy, and the priest shall look on him and pronounce him unclean. Okay, so he's going to look on him, and the hair turns white. It also goes within deeper into the skin, right? So just a little bit here. Everyone can see the hair part. That's fine. I'm not saying this picture is true. I'm just using this as an example. All right. Verse 4. If the bright spot be white in the skin of his flesh, and his sight be not deep than the skin, and the hair thereof be not turned white, then the priest shall shut up him, and that has the plague 7 days. So it could be white on there, but it didn't turn. So let me see what happens to this person. I got to give him an additional 7 days, right? Well, first is 7 days. Verse 5. And the priest shall look on him the 7th day, and behold, if the plague in his sight be at a stay, and the plague spreads not in the skin, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days more. Okay, we got to verify what's on him. Then it says, and the priest shall look on him again the 7th day, and behold, if the plague be not dark, somewhat dark, and the plague spreads not in the skin, the priest shall pronounce him, he's clean. So what is it? It's just a scab. Okay, and he shall wash his clothes and be clean. Okay. But if the scab spreads much abroad in the skin, after that he has been seen of the priest for his cleansing, he shall be seen of the priest again. And if the priest see that, behold, the scab spread in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a leprosy. When the plague of leprosy is in a man, then he shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall see him, and behold, if the rising with white in the skin, and it have turned the hair white, and there be quick raw flesh in the rising, it is an old leprosy in the skin of this flesh, and the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and shall not shut him up, for he is unclean. And if a leprosy breaks out abroad in the skin, and the leprosy covers all the skin of him that has plague from his head even to his foot, whatsoever the priest looks, then the priest shall consider, and behold, if the leprosy have covered all his flesh, he shall pronounce him, he's clean. Okay, that he has the plague, it is all turned white. He is clean. So I'm just giving you an example here where she's right here, right? She's looking normal, then hair starts to go a little straight, and you see the skin starts to change, and ultimately, she totally changed, right? Same principle. Say he totally changed into his whole skin is gone, right? The melanin is gone, right? So, but he's considered clean and he can come right back into the camp. Well, not right back into the camp, but you get the idea. All right. So, and in the place of the boils, there'll be white rising or a bright spot, white and somewhat what? Reddish. What is reddish? Okay. And it be showed to the priest, and if when the priest sees it, behold, it be in sight lower than the skin, and the hair thereof be turned white, the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague of leprosy broken out of the boil. But if the priest look on it, and behold, there be no white hairs therein, and if it be not lower than the skin, but be somewhat dark, then the priest shall shut him up 7 days. And if it spreads much abroad in the skin, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a plague. But if the bright spot stay in his place and spreads not, it is a burning boil, and the priest shall pronounce him clean. Or if there be any flesh in the skin whereof there is a hot burning, and the quick flesh that burns have a white bright spot, somewhat reddish or white, and I'm going to give you the definition from an older source for the word reddish. Okay, so you want to take a look at some of these Hebrew words and take a stab at it. We'll start right here. Okay, dam. Okay, a dam. Okay, how about right here? Adam Demet. All right, so you guys catch it on. All right, anyway, reddish is like a light red, right? But here's what I want you to see. It is rotten area of flesh, right? It's looked at as, it will look like this here. Reddish white, okay? But notice the melanin is going away. It's dying, it's rotting, and the flesh is turning to a certain color. All right? All right. 1331 says, and if the priest looks on the plague of the skull, and behold, it be not in sight deeper than the skin, and that there is no black hair in it, then the priest shall shut up him that has the plague of the skull 7 days. Then it says, and in the 7th day the priest shall look on the plague, and behold, if the skull spreads not, and there be in it no yellow hair, and the skull be not in sight deeper than the skin. So what has happened? The hair is what? He's trying to make sure that the hair, no yellow in it. Okay? So the word of the skull, I just gave the Hebrew here for it, which is netech, right? Netech. And it literally means, herpes of the skin, right? Herpes of the head or the beard, right here. And it also talks about it being itching. Okay. All right. Verse 45. And the leper in whom the plague is, his clothes shall be rent and his head bare, and he shall put a covering upon his upper lip, which is his mustache, and shall cry, unclean, unclean. All the days wherein the plague shall be in him, he shall be defiled. He is unclean. He shall dwell alone. Without the camp shall his habitation be. What happens to this guy? He's out the community. He's out of here. Okay. He got to yell out, unclean, unclean. He got to get out of the camp. He's looked at as someone that is just defiled. He dwells alone. Okay. But here's a question here. It says, when it says, and his head bare, why did they need to put that? Wouldn't he already have his head bare? Oh, they would be wearing. Oh, they would. Oh, they would. Oh, okay. I was just checking. All right. All right. So that's the word for bare. It means literally that's exactly that. He will actually have have to loosen whatever he has on his head. Okay, make his head bare, uncover his head. So the leper must uncover his head. Notice the connection with what a leper must do and with someone that mourns for death. The only ones that cannot mourn in a way that one mourns for the dead is the priest. Okay, but the connection is with someone that mourns. What I'm getting at is when someone dies, he does the same thing a leper has to do. So you notice it's still talking about death. The very thing that if you see someone die, you'll go through the same ritual, if you will, as a leper will go through. Now, the only one that can't do that is the priest, which we'll read really fast. It says, and he has that the high priest among his brethren, upon whose head the anointing oil was poured, and that is consecrated to put on the garments, shall not uncover his head, nor rend his clothes, neither shall he go into any dead body, nor defile himself for his father or for his mother, neither shall he go out of the sanctuary, nor profane the sanctuary of his Elohim, for the crown of the anointing oil of Elohim is upon him. I am Yahuwah. So again, one that is leprous, he has to uncover his head and he has to rent his clothes. He has to tear his clothes. When someone's mourning for somebody that's died, they uncover their head, they shave their head, they rent their clothes. And then it shows you the priest, they can't uncover their head. All right, we're doing good so far. So let me give you an example of leprosy seen as one dead. Bamidbar, Numbers chapter 12, verse 10, it says, and the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. And Aaron said unto Moses, alas, Adonai, or my sovereign, come and call my master, I beseech you, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Listen to 12. Let her, who is her? Miriam. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. Okay, like a stillborn baby. Okay, and Musha cried unto Yahuwah, saying, heal her now, O Elohim, I beseech you. And Yahuwah said unto Musha and Moses, if her father had but spit in her face, should she not be shamed 7 days? Let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not to all until Miriam was brought in again. Okay, so how did Miriam get leprous? Her mouth got her that way. How about the story? Are you familiar with the story here with Naaman and the Gehazi in 2 Kings? Lied to Elisha, right? What happened? Really fast. Okay.
He tried to get wealth from Elijah's caring, I guess. Like so Elijah, he was the guy that you're talking about was the actual servant for Elijah.
Uh-huh.
And Elijah, I guess, healed the person, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was sent on his way, and then he was said he asked Elijah, did he want these different gifts and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
And Elijah said no, because he was doing the father's work.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, his servant tried to go behind his back and get
We want those gifts.
Yeah.
He wanted those riches. So
Yeah.
behind Elisha's back.
And lied.
He said, well, all that you said you was going to give him my service, give it to me.
Absolutely.
Right? Give it to me. He says, oh, okay. And then, of course, Elijah knew about it.
Yep.
And then he said the same thing that was on him now goes on you. Okay. Yep. And all his generation, everyone after that took on that leprosy. All right. So What is interesting is how leprosy is understood in Torah. It is not something that is cured by any medicine or is not cured medically. Okay, there are some biological observations, but there are spiritual things that can be manifested or seen in the physical. If that is not enough, the ritual for cleansing becomes an eye opener as well. Did y'all remember the how to cleanse a leper? All right. So we'll read that. It says, "This shall be the law of the leper. In the day of his cleansing, he shall be brought unto the priest, and the priest shall go forth out of the camp, and the priest shall look, and behold, if the plague of leprosy be healed in the leper, then shall the priest command to take for him that is to be cleansed 2 birds alive and clean, a cedar wood, and scarlet, and hyssop. And the priest shall command that one of the birds be killed in an earthen vessel over running water. As for the living bird, he shall take it and the cedar wood and the scarlet and the hyssop, and shall dip them and the living bird in the blood of the bird that was killed over the running water. And he shall sprinkle upon him that is to be cleansed from the leprosy 7 times, and shall pronounce him clean, and shall let the living bird loose into the open field." What do you get out of that story? Well, is this ritual here? Anything stands out? Let me put my cap back on the water. I guess not.
Isn't it like they're putting the leprosy on the bird?
No, he's clean. Okay.
The living water stands out to me. It's
Okay.
like an immersion.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
That's what stands out when you said living water. And, even with the bird flying off, it takes me to an immersion, even when the Mashiach got immersed and, the bird came down to represent like the spirit, like a renewing, a cleansing, redemption.
Okay. All right. So we'll see. Gathering details to this ritual. Number 1, leprosy can be due to sin, your mouth or your actions, right? Number 2, you must be put outside the camp. Number 3, impure in a way that is likened to a dead person. If a person dies in the house, that house becomes impure. The leper is like walking dead. Okay? Keep this in mind. Number 4, all the rituals to make one clean seems to be a pattern after an event in the previous book in Shemot. One is killed. The blood is to be in an earthen vessel with living water running. The clear water is now turning red. The other bird is kept alive, dipped along with cedar wood, scarlet, and hyssop in the earthen vessel and sent away. Once this is done, the leper can come back into the camp, but still has to wait for 7 days to enter into the home. Where else can something similar be seen? Okay, we're going to
After they go to war?
Okay, but we're going to see. Okay, here's your hint. Plague with hyssop, wood, blood, and death. Okay, keep that in mind. So, in Shemot, Exodus 11:1, it says, "And Yahuwah said unto Moses, Yet will I bring 1 plague more upon Pharaoh, and upon Mitzrayim or Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go. Hence, when he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you or send you out, hence altogether." Okay, so 3 things should stand out for you guys: plague, death, and you will be set free. So when you think about the story, the 2 birds are a picture of 2 people or 2 nations, if you will. The first bird that died are the firstborn of the Egyptians. The second bird was Yashar Israel, his first one being set free. Remember also the blood of the Egyptians drowned in the same water. That was living water, if you will, right? Yashar was set free from the sea. That sea was called the Yom Suf, or the Sea of Reeds, and the reeds is a picture of the scarlet. The purification of the leper requires wood, blood, hyssop, and 7 days. Same thing before they left Mitzrayim, they needed blood. They dipped the hyssop plant, right, in the blood and put it on the wood or on the lentils, if you will. And later they had to remove leavened bread for how long? 7 days. Okay. So remember what we read concerning Mitzrayim. She was Miriam. She was a leper, but seen as like a dead baby, if you will, right? In the womb. All right. So just in case you forgot, it's right here. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh is half consumed when he comes out of his mother's womb. Okay, so a baby that does not come out alive. Okay, I want you to keep this picture in mind. Shemot, or Exodus 12:21. Says, then Moses called for all the elders of Yashral or Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. I'm gonna say the Pesach. 22 says, you shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that is in the basin or earthen vessel, if you will, and strike the lentils and the 2 side posts and the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. For Yahuwah will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he sees the blood upon the lintel and the 2 side posts, Yahuwah will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. Okay, so keep in mind something. You'll see in just a minute. And then, of course, you jump down to verse 29. It says, and it came to pass that midnight Yahuwah, he smote all firstborn, right? And then it says, a Mitzrayim from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all firstborn of cattle. So I'm highlighting this because you're going to see what he wants. This is what he did to the Egyptians, right? Now, look what happens. Here we go. 13:2 says, purify unto me all firstborn. Whatso opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast. It is mine. So if you compare that with what we just read, you can see that what was destroyed in Mitzrayim was patterned after what he wanted. Okay, is everyone with me so far? All right, so when Yashral came out of the doors, they were like coming out of a womb. Okay, being born a nation, a people for himself, something he can call his own. In fact, he placed his name on them to let them know who they belong to. Okay, the reverse is true. If the homes were a picture of a womb, then Egyptians had their firstborn die in the womb, likened to leprosy, like Miriam. When Yahuwah took their firstborn, he destroyed them as a nation. It would be the firstborn that was supposed to preserve the next generation. That's how it normally works. Okay, so everyone kind of sees the point here so far. Okay, so interesting thought. Is there a possibility to look at the Egyptians' firstborn as stillborn before they die? No, we're not sure. All right, let's read really fast. It says, and all the firstborn in the land of Mitzrayim shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sit upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts, right? So I'm highlighting the part that I need you guys to focus on. So it says what? Y'all agree? This is King James. So I know you guys got to agree. All right. This is what it is in the Hebrew here, okay? It says, Umet kal bechor, okay? Now, you see what it says in the Hebrew, right? And again, it's translated as, and all firstborn shall die. That's what you see. King James says it. Everyone agrees. All right. However, this translation is not correct. Okay. If we want to say, and all firstborn shall die, it would be spelled a little differently. Look what it would spell like. What does that say? Or your most called Bekor. So notice that it would have to be in a different tense. This says right here, will or shall die, right? That doesn't say that in the Hebrew there. Okay, so this is not in a future tense, actually. It says, so what the Hebrew says is, and all firstborn are dead. That's what it says. So he's already told, listen, they're dead. Okay, all right. So the greatest teacher of life is death. If you do not want death, then you would choose life, right? All right. So most of us do not consciously think about death. We have work, school, daily activities that keeps us from thinking about death sometimes. But when we have an illness or a brush with death or a terminal disease of some sort, then it becomes important. Okay, so we need to do what is pleasing to our Creator. This is choosing life. The opposite is true. By not doing what He says, we choose death. Okay, so we don't see it that way sometimes, but that's a reality. All right, so what are we to learn from the leper and the Exodus? All right, so the leper is likened to someone physically alive, but spiritually dead. Two people are housed in one body. The spiritual life, that is your mental and spiritual state, must operate in righteousness. This will cause the physical body to operate in righteousness. If this can be achieved, hence the term if, the next stage is how the individual person can operate in a community with others, brothers and sisters. If they cannot, they would be looked at as someone spiritually dead, not a part of the community, someone leprous. If they want to rejoin the community, they must go through a rebirthing process within themselves first, and then be joined to the community. This is not solely an individual walk. This is a family. Okay. So we must work on ourselves first before we can be ready for any family. All right. So again, so in this process, we're going to see at the end more about the water in the last part. Okay. So water is very important in cleansing, but all these rituals is to teach you something. So if you're not getting why he put these animals in place, these water purifications in place, all this stuff, because he's trying to show us how to get back to him. This is what we're going to see in just a minute. All right. So note, this pattern can be seen in the end time prophecy. 7 days outside is likened to the seventh day rest. All others that miss this rest, those that are dead, can be joined on the 8th day, providing that they have circumcised their what? Their heart. Okay, they made themselves ready. So they circumcised their heart. Okay, so again, I'll put more on this in the future, is what it says at the other part of there. But again, understand that there's and I'm talking about spiritually, not talking about someone that's physically dead. I'm talking about spiritually dead. Okay, and what makes you spiritually dead sometimes? Your walk, your actions, your talk, you separate yourself from the Father. You become a nida. That's what I'm saying. We'll see that in just a minute.
And also, Maury, if I may add, the fruit that you produce will also make you spiritually dead. Because if you're not producing good fruit, then you're like a dead tree that will be shut down by what we produce, following the laws, statutes, commandments that the Most High put in place. Others will see what we're producing.
Right. Right. So you'll know them by your fruit, realistically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Leviticus 15:2 says, now we're moving on to issues. Okay. It says, speak unto the children of Yashral or Israel and say unto them, when any man has a running issue, a zub, out of his flesh, because of his zub, he is unclean. You're like, what's a zub? Anyway, and this shall be his uncleanness in his issue, whether his flesh run with his issue or his zub, or his flesh be stopped from his issue it is his uncleanness. Every bed whereon he lies that has the issue is unclean, and everything whereon he sits shall be unclean. Okay, so definition of zoob, right? It's a flow free, something that flows. So it's a little bit different from a natural sex, okay? So this is like something that it just keeps coming out. It's just flowing, all right? It says to have sexual flux, waste away, overflow, flow, gush out, running issues, pine away, things like that. And then I put, it's in older dictionaries, it's translated as discharge. So it just keeps coming out though. It's a flow that just keeps coming out. Okay. Did he sin? Did this person sin? Hmm? No. It's just a flow. Yeah, you could have been right. Someone you talked to could have been wrong. No, okay. But keep that in mind, because I want us to keep in mind, most of the time we think we picture unclean with sin all the time. Sometimes unclean does not mean sin, right? So a woman can be unclean, doesn't mean when she has her cycle, doesn't mean she sinned. When she has a baby, she's unclean, doesn't mean she sinned, right? All right, so Leviticus 15:5 says, and whatsoever touches his bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And he that sits on anything wherein he sat that has the issue shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And he that touches the flesh of him that has the issue shall wash his clothes, bathe himself in water, and be unclean until, why unclean until evening? What's up with this evening thing? Okay. It's the beginning of a new day. Okay. All right. So evening of a day. Now I'm not going to really go into this here, but I'll share with you some things that maybe in the future we'll talk about, like the difference between the evening and the day and how this works. But anyway, evening marks the end of a petition of lamentations. And here are some scriptures if you're just going to read that on your own. Now, this role of evening as the boundary between clean and unclean is connected with the culture chronological system of the post-elected period. When I say post-elected period, what does that mean? Before the exile. Okay, which counts each day as beginning with evening. So the what? Your juridical day also ends at evening. And we can see from the removal of the body of an executed, the one that died. We'll talk about hanging. I guess we'll read it now on here, but I was going to skip it. Someone that's executed, the individual in the evening, right? And so those are the places for it. I have tons of other things, but I said I'll table it. But I'll read this really fast. It says, his body shall not remain all night upon the tree, but he shall in any wise bury him that day. Okay, for he that is hanged is a curse of Elohim, that your land be not defiled, which Yahuwah your Elohim gives you for an inheritance. Okay, so it has to be on that day, right? Joshua, listen to what it says there. It says, and the king of Ai, he hanged on the tree until evening tide. And as soon as the sun was down, or both, if you will, Yahushua or Joshua commanded that they should take his carcass down from the tree and cast it at the entering of the gates of the city and arise there on a great heap of stones that remains unto his day, which we know it's not there now. But the Hebrew there, unfortunately, there's a little pink and green block that's blocking that whole Hebrew there. But if the brother can just lift it up, I think we might be able to read that, if that's at all possible. But if not, you see it? If you can lift up so everyone can read it there. Yeah, we just move that to the side there. All right. So it says, anyone want to read it or you just want me to read it? Okay, I appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. All right. Well, it's Melech Ha'ai, right? So this is talking about and the king of Ai. Then it says Tala, which means hanged. All ha-chates, which means what? Hanged up on the tree. Ad chates, assuming ad 8 ha erev, which means until time the evening. Okay, so that's what it says in the Hebrew there. But I really want you guys to focus on this. Let me see, part right here. And in the future, I'll do a lesson on this here and some other places to say, why is this such a big deal? All right, some old sources. I don't know if I really wanted to, but anyway, in the Akkadian, these are just older languages, right? So I put on here the ancient source that use the same Semitic or Shemitic, if you will, languages that dates to the time of the Hebrews. So what I did was take some sources that are outside of the scripture to define words, right? Because what we have now uses Strong's Concordance a lot, which is very dated, you know. So therefore, but if you use Akkadian, the Ugaritic, you know, these are older way during the time that Moses and let's say Dave and all of them, that's their language of their day. Okay, so I use that to show what they would talk about in a day. So I won't realistically go over that. I only put 2 slides. If you want to just look up some of these things, I put this on here. But anyway, you know, it talks about how the Akkadian is an extra biblical occurrences, and some of the Tanakh occurrences show Ereb, derived from the root Arab, Ereb, with the meaning enter. In other words, when the Erev is day of the sun, it is entering into a dwelling place. It sets and evening begins. Since it's illustrated all by the Hebrew word Arab, becoming evening. And then there's some places that you use. But then you got the next one, which I want to, I guess I'll put that on there. Yeah. So these are all the different places. There's the East Semitic root, Arab, which is represented by the verb erbu, which means to sink, and construct phrase meaning er shamsi, which literally means sunset. Northwest Semitic, we find in the Ugaritic, same thing, sunset. So they're letting you know that in other languages of that time, this is what they were called. But again, I'm not going to do this here because of time-wise. But other thing is, there are brothers and sisters that do it for on the day side, right? And so I love my brothers, and I don't talk against any of them. But my point is, if we say why we do it, I'm sure they have a reason, and they talk about why they do it. All right, so I'll leave it at that. Leviticus 15:8, it says, and if that he has issue, spits on him that is clean. So this guy that got an issue, he spit on you, or she spit on you, then he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whatsoever he rides upon that has this issue shall be unclean, and whosoever touches anything that was under him shall be unclean until the evening. And he that bears any of those things shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And whomsoever has he touches that has the issue and has not rinsed his hands in water, he shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. And the vessel of earth that he touches, which has the issue, shall be broken, and every vessel of wood shall be rinsed in water. And when he that has an issue is cleansed of his issue, then he shall number to himself 7 days for his cleansing, and wash his clothes and bathe his flesh in running water, and shall be clean. And on the 8th day he shall take to him 2 turtle doves of 2 young pigeons, and come before Yahuwah unto the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, and give them unto the priest. And the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before Yahuwah for his issue. So, and the priest shall offer them, the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for him before Yahuwah for his issue. And if any man's seed or copulation go out from him, then he shall wash all his flesh in water and be unclean until evening, and every garment and every skin thereon is the seed of copulation shall be washed with water and be unclean until evening. The woman also with whom man shall lie with seed of copulation, they shall both bathe themselves in water and be unclean until evening. All right, so that's just the word for copulation right there. And this is for lying down for sexual acts, carnally, X, Y, and Z, but that's what it is. I'm sure everyone's familiar with that. All right, so the difference in seed and egg, impurity between male and female essentially reflects differences in male and female's physiology. Male ejaculation is completed quickly, and the semen is generally either deposited in a woman's body or absorbed by clothing, bed covers, or some other material. This would account for the short duration of the impurity until evening. Significantly, semen does not cause midrash, which is treading. Impurity to chairs in bed, unlike the zab or the zub, which is irregular loss of seed or seed-like substance, as in the case of the zab. And more, or which is, when I say zab meaning discharge, is more complicated because it lost not by ejaculation, but by slow oozing, similar to female discharges. Okay, so I don't want to be too graphic. So abnormal male discharge and abnormal female discharge progresses over a period of time and are therefore apt to be found in a variety of places and on types of furniture designated for sitting or lying upon. All right. Almost there. So it says 19. It says, and if a woman has an issue and her issue in her flesh be blood, she shall be put apart 7 days. And whatsoever touches her shall be unclean until the evening. And everything that she lies upon in her separation, in her nidah, shall be unclean. Even everything also that she sits upon shall be unclean. Whatsoever touches her bed shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And whatsoever touches anything that she sat upon shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until evening. And if it be on her bed or in anything wherein she sits, when he touches it, he shall be unclean until evening. Had some?
More concerned about what I'd like to know is the nidah a generational curse stemming back to the sin in the garden?
Fast answer, yes. Okay, but we'll see it today. We'll see it at the end of it. I'll show you an example of it. So nidah, probably to what? This is the definition of a nidah. Listen to it. Probably rejection. By implication, impurity, especially personal menstruation, or moral idolatry or incest, far filthiness, flowers, menstruation. Everyone's familiar with this here, but I'm saying it literally is translated either as flowers or separation, unclean, uncleanness, filthiness, things like that. Okay. All right. All righty. Here we go. All right, they're gonna have to close that door. 15:24, it says, if any man lie with her at all, and her flowers, right, be upon him, he shall be unclean 7 days, and all the bed whereon he lies shall be unclean. And if a woman has an issue of her blood many days out of the time of her separation, or if it run beyond the time of her separation, all the days of the issue of her uncleanness shall be as the days of her separation. She shall be unclean. Every bed whereon she lies, all the days of her issues shall be unto her as the bed of her separation. And whatsoever she sits upon shall be unclean as an uncleanness of her separation. And whatsoever touches those things shall be unclean and shall wash his clothes and bathe himself in water and be unclean until the evening. But if she be cleansed of her issue, then she shall number to herself 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. And on the 8th day she shall take unto her 2 turtle or 2 young pigeons. And it's not 2 turtles like unclean animal turtles, just it's turtle doves. Okay, all right. Just in case you all might want to try it and go get some turtles. All right, and bring them unto the priest to the door of the tabernacle of the congregation. All right, so I want you to see how this word is being translated in Ezra 9, 10, and 11. Okay, and why? It says, and now, O our Elohim, what shall we say after this? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you have commanded by your servants, the prophets, saying, the land unto which you go to possess it is an unclean. It is a nidah land with the filthiness. Again, the word there is nadat, which is from the root word nadah. Again, he's letting you know that this is how the land was, of the people of the land, with their abominations, which have filled it from one end to another with their uncleanness. Okay, with their uncleanness, their tameh, being unclean. So again, it's even the land, basically the people, because they didn't listen to the commandments of the Most High, what winds up happening is they made the land like a nidah, made it very filthy and unclean. All right. Sorry, ladies. I know nidah is which I go through every month, but I'm just only reading Torah. I mean, that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to go as fast as I can so they'll be okay. Huh? No, you can't touch her on her nidah. Oh, yeah, different question. Okay.
I know that we don't practice the sacrifices and whatnot because of Mashiach's here and everything. But as far as all this that you're reading to us, does that still apply to us today? We need to be doing this today?
No, well, that's what I said. We're going to, at the end, I'm going to explain what's going on. So in layman's terms, you still should be separated from her when she's in this thing. You should never want to go into X, Y, and Z. But the ritual parts of it is for a specific reason. We're going to read that at the end of this.
Okay.
Well, at the end of this portion here, but also at the end of the lesson.
And then even also on the man, as far as, like you was talking about the sleeping and all of that, the man portion, when he discharged and all of that, does that still apply as well? Okay.
Yeah. All right. So it says, Leviticus 15:30 says, and the priest shall offer the one for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering, and the priest shall make an atonement for her before Yahuwah for the issues of her uncleanness. Thus shall you separate the children of Yisrael Israel from their uncleanness, that they die not in their uncleanness when they defile my tabernacle that is among them. This is the law of him that has an issue, and of whosoever seed goes from him and is defiled therewith, and of her that is sick of her flowers, and of him that has an issue, of the man and of the woman, and of him that lies with her that is unclean. All right. So why the sin offering? What did she or he do wrong? What will you guys answer? Okay. The same thing I'm getting right now. Nothing. Okay. All right. So to understand this question, let's quickly look at the temple of Yahuwah and see why the rituals. Because that's why we're going to see why all of this. What is it that we're supposed to get out of this? Okay. All right. So it says, so it was to prepare and help us get back to the garden. Remember, we went over the similarities of the garden with the temple. Remember, we went over that in Shemot. We also went over the similarity with the garden and with Mount Sinai, right? So notice in both places, laws were made. Notice the two cherubim, cherubim with the sword at the gate of his garden or paradise. If you read the Septuagint, where the word garden is translated as paradise. But anyway, and the two cherubims on the ark with no sword, but with a mercy seat. So the temple was to help you come to him, but it must be in the right way or a set apart way, right? So again, you watch this Shemot series when we went over this here, if all this is strange to you. All right. So all the rituals cleansing is to remind you of the condition you are in We cannot go into his temple common. Remember the difference of Kodesh or set apart, common called holy. The opposite that is common. We must be ready at all times when we come into his presence. Remember, you do not own the place. In fact, you do not own yourself. Okay. So when you do things your way, you are stating you are not a part of his system. Your system may include his system, but the role has been reversed. In other words, sometimes we want to incorporate his system into us and then call what we have set apart. Okay, that's not good. Now we're reversing it. Father, you set it down a little bit. You gave us a little bit, but now let me take over. I got this. But I'll put some of the stuff that you said into our walk, and the walk I believe it is now, and walk it out. And that's kind of how it's starting to happen anyway. But so again, the temple is a reminder that this will be your Garden of Eden. Okay. So that was the whole point of the temple. Remember, all this is in that series we did in Shemot. I will test you outside of my house with this temporary house to see if you are ready. So let's look at it really fast. Bereshit or Genesis 3:22 through 24 says, and Yahuwah Elohim said, behold, the man is become as one of us to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore, Yahuwah Elohim sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. All right. So they could no longer live with Yahuwah because they broke the rules. Okay. They became like Yahuwah, but in a fallen state. Eating from the tree made them tameh, made them unclean. Before they were tahor. Okay. Which meant they were pure, not unclean. Tahor gave them the ability to be in the presence of Yahuwah. Okay, that's how they were able to do that. All right, and then it said, eating from the tree brought death. So when they started eating from that tree, it brought death to what? The body. Eating from the tree brought death to the body. It started the clock to a decaying flesh. Now you shall die. Your body now is going to start to decay. All right, so the body went into an unclean state, a separation, a nidah was made. So prior to that, a woman wouldn't have a nidah, if you will. But it went into, and specifically the one that did it. All right, that's too harsh. Now I'm just messing because man was no better. Yeah, sure, baby. Got it. Give me a piece of that. Though the body would never return to this state again, Yahuwah had mercy and has given mankind the ability to draw closer to him. In order for this, he used animals and rituals to show consequences and purity laws to see what is needed to be with him again. So he's using these as teaching tools to start bringing us back to the desire to be in this pure state, this tahor state, right? All right, keep this in mind. As we keep going, Genesis 3:6 says, and when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eye, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also to her husband with her, and he did eat. So he wasn't nowhere like he was out there hunting. He's right there next to her. Okay. And the eyes of them both were open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So why would they know they're naked? So I want to pose a theory. Huh?
Because their eyes were open, and it was due to disobedience that their eyes were open, because they were in a pure state.
Right. So I want to show a possibility of something that one may not have picked up.
I think they had the ruach on them, and then I think once they sinned, the ruach left.
Okay. So what I'm getting at is, why would if I have them walk around just
He clothed them in
Just
their.
all naked. Hey, let me walk around here.
He clothed them in his esteem.
Okay, so that's what we're going to see. We're going to see if, because something decayed, something left, and now they realize they were naked. So that's what we're going to see in just a minute. Just a theory. Huh? Yeah, they're uncovered. Well, we're going to see. That's what I said. We're going to see, but I want to use the definitions. I don't want to, it'd be like, say, me. But I'm just giving a theory based off of the definitions of words. Okay? So I said, verse 8, it says, and they heard the voice of Yahuwah Elohim walking in the garden in the cool of the day. So now what they're doing, they heard the voice, right? And Adam and his Isha, his wife, hid themselves from the presence of Yahuwah Elohim amongst the trees of the garden. And Yahuwah Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, where are you? Why does he need to say, where are you? Right? And he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked and I hid myself. And he said, who told you that you was naked? Have you eaten from the tree whereof I commanded you that you should not eat? All right. So what they saw and ate caused a decline in their body. The flesh can no longer be in his house. The flesh. Okay, it is in a decaying or a sinful state now. That's what sin does. It decays. So it's in a decay or a sinful state. Could the Nada be a reminder to the woman for what happened in the garden? Could the pain, cramps, etc., because you get the cramps also with childbearing. Same thing you get with menstruals, right? But anyway, remind her of the potential death, right? And then to the man working to keep his house in order, a reminder to be a righteous governor. Is these things a possibility? So we can see that entering into the temple wrong or common will cause death. Okay? Will cause death. So here we're back to that definition that I told you, remember, tahor. Look what's highlighted. Literally what? Brightness, ceremonially purification, but clearness, esteem, purifying, bright, clear, kodesh, right? So is the word tahor, because this is what Adam and Kawa were before they became tameh. If they were tahor, could they be in a clearness, an esteemed state, in a brightness? So in other words, their body was such a bright way. It had nothing to do with them just walking around, la da da da. You see what I mean? In other words, they could have been their bodies could have been in a different state. But I'm going to give you an example of that just to verify this a little bit, okay? So is this a possibility? And let's read an example, because mind you, where were they at? They were always in his presence, right? All right, so keep that in mind. Now look at this. Shemot 34:28. And he was there with Yahuwah 40 days and 40 nights. And he did neither eat bread nor drink water, and he wrote upon the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 words, 10 Deborahs, commonly called 10 commandments. And it came to pass when Moses came down from the Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of witness or testimony in Moshe's hand, when he came down from the mount, and Moshe knew not that his skin of his face, what? Shone. The word is Quran, which means shines, rays of light. He's in his presence and his face is shining. Now, what do you think is happening in the garden if they are in his presence? Couldn't they have been in the same brightness and light and things like this, right? So anyway, while he talked with him, and when Aaron and all the children of Yeshua saw Moses, behold, the skin of his face did shine. It was shining with rays of light. And they were afraid to come nigh him. And Moshe called unto them, and Aaron and all the rulers of the congregation returned unto him. And Moshe talked with them. And afterwards, all the children of Yeshua came nigh, and he gave them in the commandments and all that who had spoken with him in the Mount Sinai or Sinai. Until Moshe or Moses had done speaking with them, he put a veil on his face. So the point I'm getting at is, if the 40 days and 40 nights he's with the Most High, he's glowing, Could you imagine if they were in the garden, but your mom, as in the garden, that what winds up happening is he starts glowing. They were glowing. And then when they sinned, something happened. Decay came. The steam goes away. The brightness goes away. Oh my gosh, I'm naked. Let me go find me some fig leaves. All right. So the results of being in his presence was his body changed. His body changed. His natural body changed in the presence of the Most High. Same principle. We would have to say it's the same thing in the garden with Adam and Chava. All right. Water is used to understand more than just cleansing. All right. So I put in just about all rituals, it requires a washing. Why is this needed? It helps us see the need from being impure to pure. It lets us know how mortal we really are. Water is also a picture of Yahuwah. And I put, how do we know this? So, Yirmiyahu or Jeremiah 2:13, for my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no waters. So he is living water, but you create your own water. Okay? Keep that in mind. Because a lot of us do that. We create our own water and put the Father in the water. All right. 17:13 and 14 says, O Yahuwah, the hope of Yisrael, Israel, all that forsake you shall be ashamed, and they that depart from me shall be written in the earth, because they have forsaken Yahuwah, the mikvah, or commonly called the fountain of living waters. Heal me, O Yahuwah, I shall be healed. Save me, and I shall be saved, for you are my praise. All right, so when one does what's commonly called a mikvah or a mikvah, the immersion, one is saying, I am reborn. The living water to be in my is to be my source of life. Now, what I'm getting at here is this is why immersions is done in living water. Now, I'm not saying those that did it in let's say a pool or something like that. All I'm simply stating is that every example that we have has been done in living water. Okay, we have never found one that was done something that was like a pond or stagnated. All right, but there's a reason for the living water. Okay, so anyway, the living water is to be a source of life. We also saw blood is needed, right? Which requires what? A death. Death is required to get this blood. Lastly, a waiting period or an endurance, if you will. So once all this is done, then you still have to wait. So why are you waiting? To have you ponder on all that have been done and where one desires to go. All right. So when you think about it, sure, we do the immersion, we got the blood, but there's still a waiting period. We haven't even made it back to the Father yet. There's a waiting period. There's an endurance. So the whole process of all the rituals also helps us to understand how he's going to do the end time prophecy as well. Okay. All right. Yes, Shealot, which means any questions? Anyone had anything?
I have a question. As you were talking about in the beginning, the fall of Adam and Eve, what I've always wondered is, why did Adam take the fruit when he saw clearly that it was disobedient?
As soon as we get to the kingdom, we're going to ask him the same question.
Okay.
Well, one could look at, the power of persuasion. I mean, there could be a lot of reasons, but there's not a realistic scriptural reason, I guess I would say, other than, he was there. But if it became pleasing to the eye, let's say for her, and she convinced him the same thing is pleasing, next thing you know, it becomes something that they desire. He knows that you'll be like him. Man, I'll be just like the Most High. That's something worth biting into, and maybe that could be the possibility. But again, that would be,
Okay, so we got a question from YouTube. They want to know, so is gray hair in youth considered leprosy?
In youth?
Mm-hmm.
It just depends on how they got. Like sometimes some things are inherited. I don't know if that's a part of it now versus how it was back then, because what they would look at is in their youth, you remember the priest would go in and look in their skull and see. And so it depends on how it looks in relation from the skull or from the head to the hair to the actual follicle.
It's not just because it has.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he'll see if it's actually a plague or not. Okay.
More raised. It's fair to say that some of this was, some of it could be genetic, just a genetic recession, you know, of a gene, because the times that they were living in, you had more dark-skinned hued people than you had, you know, light-skinned hued people. So, you know, these anomalies was just something to look into. Like you would go to the doctor. It was not necessary. Is it fair to say it was not necessarily always looked at something as a bad thing, but just a genetic recess, you know, in the early human beings?
Yeah, the only thing the priest would do is look to see if it's an actual plague itself. So if they have it, let's say in their genetics, and in their genetics, it does the same thing. Like I've seen mothers and babies have the same white patch, so to speak. But there's no damage to the actual the skull itself or the skin. There's no damage there. So that's what I said. The priest, when they look on it, they got to determine, is this an actual plague or not versus something that's genetics.
If someone had leprosy in this day and age, how will they be cleansed?
With fire, just burn them. No. All right. No, don't do that. Yeah, don't do that. All right. So today they got, you know, medicine and stuff like that they will realistically do, but you know, I think that's how they would do it now, is because of the technology age that we have now. So I think that's what it would be. Mm-hmm.
More, with that being said, if they, you know, had, you know, antibiotics, things of that nature, and to cure it, but wouldn't that person still be spiritually unclean?
So when it comes to spiritually unclean, there are some things that make you spiritually unclean and some things that make you unclean from a natural state. But when it comes to, for example, remember, there's another temple that's going to be built, which is the third temple. So if everything else, let's just say he's cleansed, let's say naturally, then the only thing that's left to be cleansed would be spiritually. If I use that analogy, then that's what the king will do. That's what let's say Yahuwah would do. He would determine that person to be clean at that point, because there's not a temple. But outside of that, the whole point of even the rituals was to say so that you wouldn't defile the temple. Everything that we read at the end, it was solely about defiling the temple.
The temple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So a burnt offering. So we did a little a lesson on it on the couple of parshas ago, and basically burnt offering what belongs to Yahuwah solely. It is burnt completely. No one shares that. The only one gets that is the Father. You put all that on there. He consumes it by fire. A peace offering, you kill it, and the priest will put it on the altar, and both of you guys consume the peace offering. All right.
So could you say hypocrisy, is that a form of uncleanness?
Yeah, mouth. That's all under mouth. That's what I was saying. Remember when Miriam?
No, I mean like to say you live in righteousness and then you don't. Could that be a form of leprosy and uncleanness?
Okay, not speaking of just how your actions, right?
Yes.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Mouth and actions is the same thing.
Okay.
So if someone's actions a certain way, even if they say something, but they don't walk out what they say, it's no difference. Or if someone says something verbally, but their actions speak otherwise, it's the same thing.
So these people are not going to make it into the kingdom, right?
Wouldn't say they would make it into the kingdom. What they would say is that what winds up happening depend on the situation. Either if they repented of it, then it'd be between Yahuwah and that person. So I couldn't say, for an example, this person's not going to make it in, right? That's not my job or anybody's job for that matter. The best one could say probably is, Father Elohim, you judge between A and B.
In the book of Revelations, one of the assemblies are called after that.
Ken.
Some of those pictures that you were showing of leprosy shows like some skin pigments, I've seen that quite often here, in Texas, people that have those, like, I saw the pictures of the hands, and you were showing that as an example of what leprosy is. I was under the understanding, I don't know if it's called Hansen's disease.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And that's what we're commonly taught that leprosy is. But the pictures that you were showing kind of go against what I was understanding. And like I said, I've seen that quite a bit, of folks that have that skin pigment. They not only have it on their hands, they have it on their arms and their face, or they're normally like darker skinned, even like here in San Antonio, the Hispanics, I've seen that quite often.
Oh, yeah.
Is that leprosy, or is that just an example of the skin that the scriptures are talking about?
Right. So that's what I was sharing earlier. I said, I'm not stating this is leprosy. What I was sharing earlier was these are some examples of what leprosy could be like. So there are simple examples. There's a lot more to leprosy. Now, there's what do you call it? Vitiligo, whatever. There's other stuff that people have that have similarities to it. But yeah, those are all examples.
Okay.
So the Nadah, is this more to being unclean to go to the temple? Does that still pertain to us today where we don't have a temple?
No, it's only for that. So as I say, the Nidah, it's a common system, for the ladies. But yeah, it had everything to do with a temple. It had everything to do with that. But whatever she laid on, whatever she sat on, it was just unclean until she finished. Normally, she finished within 7 days or up to 7 days for some. But the point is that, and then after that, they'd be clean. But that, for me to really go more into the Nidah and why everything they sat on is because they didn't have, women weren't wearing tampons and Depends and everything else. They had breathable cloths. That's what they were using. So it absorbs the blood, but it also can come through their clothing, and whatever they sit on touch, it starts contaminating. All right. Okay. Well, if our hearts and minds is clear, we can stand and close. And you turn all that. Okay. Yehusef. Shalom. Good. I was wondering if you can close us out. Because Henny, I said you lost the chess game. I just want to know if you want to read. Okay. All right. Hallelujah. Baruch Hashem Yahuwah.
Give you praise, King, and honor, Abba. Lord, for your word. Lord, for direction and guidance, Abba. These challenging days of a week, Father, I just thank you that we can rely on you and your word. We can go to your word at any time, Father, and seek your guidance. Hear your call. Father, I pray that you touch every heart. I pray that you remove all leaven, everything that is contrary to your way, Father. Everything that is against your standards, against your word, Father. Everything that causes division and strife, Father. Everything that is a leprosy, Father, I cast it down right now in your name, Abba. In the power of your Son, Yahushua, Abba. I pray that you dwell within the midst of us. I pray that you grow this assembly stronger and stronger each day, each Shabbat, Father, each month. Told out to your name, Abba. I say this in Yahushua's name. Amen.
Oh, yeah. All right. Hmm?
Oh, yeah.
Good. Hmm? Okay.
We wouldn't have no sound without everything else. Shalom.
I think it was probably where you could have. I'm sure you got more I don't want to start no trouble, but I want to talk about that chicken.
I'ma still eat it.
So somebody out here.
Oh, the chicken in the turkey last week. I'm still eat it.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about that, me and Maisha, Kapasi Bosh, but we were just saying like when you look at the diet, like he was saying about the cows and the other unclean animals, they digest stuff different. But when you look at like people try to say chicken like a vulture, but when you look at how they digestive system, their anatomy is like from the vulture, it's different. So like I think that's like the same thing, you know. Like I think the chicken, I had to tell you the long